Hello everyone. Welcome to the Model Express channel. The MGEX Phoenix model from Shen Shou model is finally assembled. So without further ado, today we'll be bringing you a review of this product. First, let's look at the question everyone is most concerned about: the condition of the electroplated paint on the overall model in unicorn mode. Standard lighting was used during the photo shoot. The overall paint finish is very smooth, with virtually no orange peel effect. However, upon closer inspection from different angles, slight sink marks can still be observed. From the front, the exposed sprue gates are almost invisible. Some gates are exposed, but very few in number, making them nearly impossible to spot without close inspection. Currently, the main locations for exposed sprue gates are in destruction mode. They are very difficult to see in unicorn mode. The only truly noticeable location is on the inside of the wrist armor, where two relatively obvious sprue gates are visible. There is one exposed sprue gate on the side of the visor, and occasionally one on the outer armor of the head. The other sprue gates are not prominent. Let's examine the details of each part. First, the legs. From the outside, you can hardly see any exposed sprue gates. The main exposed gates are concentrated on the inside of the knee plate, where they are quite noticeable. I can only say that Shen Shou's sprue gate design is very clever. Under normal circumstances, they are absolutely invisible from the outside. Most of the sprue gates are located in the gaps between the outer armor plates. Therefore, when assembling and cutting the sprue gates, be sure to cut them evenly, otherwise it will affect the normal left-right assembly of the outer armor and the installation of the armor plates. The main exposed sprue marks on the arms are the two most noticeable locations on the inside of the forearm armor, as mentioned before. These marks are completely invisible when the arm is in a normal position, but become easily visible when rotated. Other than this, exposed sprue marks are generally not visible. However, one important part that needs adjustment is the armor at the top of the shoulder armor. The gold outer armor part and the gray inner frame part must be tightly fitted. As you can see in the instructions, parts 6, 9 and P7 are best glued together. This is because the electroplated outer armor parts nesting into the 6, 9 parts can cause a certain probability of springing back. Furthermore, this is a stress point when the outer armor is deployed, so it's recommended to glue them in place before assembling the overall connection below. In addition, the sprue marks on the shoulder parts must be thoroughly cleaned, otherwise the armor will get stuck when it is properly deployed. Each time the outer armor is retrieved, the two ends of the shoulder armor need to be slightly pried open by hand using the flexibility of the plastic to insert the outer armor. There will be a slight jamming between the parts. Additionally, in destruction mode, the exposed shoulder armor will have a very noticeable sprue mark. Repeatedly unfolding the outer armor can easily scratch the electroplated paint, so I recommend avoiding handling the model after unfolding it. Since it's a KO model, repeated unfolding and retracting of the outer armor will inevitably cause scratches on the electroplated paint. Also, it's advisable to wear gloves when handling this model, as the electroplated paint is a huge fingerprint magnet. The outer armor of the skirt armor still unfolds very tightly. Looking at the inside, the gold part indicated in the video can be slightly trimmed to make the outer armor unfold more smoothly. If you don't want to trim it thinner, you might need to remove the part and reinstall it like I did to achieve the outer armor unfolding. You can see that the outer armor is noticeably tight when pushed in, and even tighter when pushed out. Then the outer armor of the body unfolds. Everyone knows that MH model bodies tend to fall apart once the outer armor is unfolded, and this Shen Shou model still has this problem, but it won't fall apart as easily, since it doesn't use LED light strips for connection. Note this area where the upper and lower parts connect. There are two very thin posts and a very thin blue transparent part post. Normally, when the outer armor is unfolded, this area is a stress point, making it very easy for the two sections to detach. When there are LED light units inside, they act as auxiliary connections, making it less likely to fall apart. Now, without the light units, it's relatively easy for it to detach. Therefore, apply glue to the posts to prevent the upper and lower body from easily detaching. However, after applying glue, the body won't fall off no matter how it's disassembled. This defect is caused by the design of the MGEX itself, so I recommend using glue directly when assembling this part. Otherwise, the upper body has a high probability of falling off. Once it falls off, it's very difficult to reassemble. Then we come to the head. As you can see, This head is relatively well made. The heads of the other products have some flaws. First, pull out the antenna. I'm using a non-deformable antenna here. You can see that the sprue mark is basically at the edge, in an almost inconspicuous position, so you can just use an electroplated gold marker to touch it up. After all, it's impossible to completely hide the sprue mark on the antenna. Looking back at the head, there are some less obvious exposed sprue marks. First, there's a very small sprue mark on the outer armor of the side of the face. It can be easily touched up with a marker. Also, there's a small sprue mark on the outer armor of the head, but these are almost invisible with simple touch-ups. The included armor kit offers 3 options. In the video, I used the armor of Unit 3, Phoenix, which required some minor parts adjustments. First, the area shown in the video was originally a right angle, which I cut into an angle. Without this angle, it would press against the transparent facial parts, resulting in a large gap between the head armor and the mask, giving the impression that the parts weren't properly installed. With Unit 1, you can clearly see the larger gap between the 2 parts. However, this area on Phoenix is quite tightly connected, so I strongly recommend cutting it at an angle. This creates more space, allowing the transparent eye parts to fit completely, resulting in a very beautiful finished product. The unicorn's mask, being an electroplated part, will be slightly looser when connected to the transparent parts inside. This is because this area is a crucial stress point during transformation. Therefore, I recommend using glue to secure the electroplated part to the blue transparent part. Otherwise, it will fall out during transformation. If you find the mask slightly crooked during assembly, you can use a hard object to gently shift the internal support slightly in the opposite direction. This support has a slight range of lateral movement. If you want to adjust its position, use a small tool to shift it slightly in the opposite direction. The video shows it adjusted correctly. Let's take a look at the antenna components. There are many styles of antennas, so you need to choose your preferred type before installation. Also, due to the electroplated finish and the small connection points of the antenna, almost all deformable antennas will have problems, and the same applies to the other 2 brands. Therefore, I suggest using a one-piece antenna for direct replacement, and don't try to use a deformable antenna. Next, let's talk about a slight flaw, the pivot point connecting the leg and hip. When the leg rotates for extended periods, it's prone to falling out. The connecting post at this location is relatively short and doesn't insert deeply enough. With too many rotations, it will gradually slip out. Therefore, I recommend using UV adhesive to reinforce it. Furthermore, it's recommended to remove the shoulder armor separately each time the outer armor is deployed. Then you can simply snap it back on. C-shaped clips are used here, making installation and removal quite easy. Otherwise, it's very easy to scratch the paint, and even applying force when deploying the outer armor can damage the C-shaped clips. The backpack is exactly the same as Unit 1, with no difference whatsoever. The side of the sword hilt is definitely exposed, but in unicorn mode, the hilt is folded up and completely invisible. Finally, there's Phoenix Unit 3's most distinctive equipment, and the main part of Shen Shou's redesign, its large, gleaming golden shield. The shield's assembly differs significantly from the main body. Let's look at the shield first. The side parts are installed much more securely than those on Chonglong, and can be easily removed with a little force. The locking mechanism is much tighter than Chonglong's previous locking mechanism. The connecting posts between the outer and inner parts have been slightly adjusted and then glued in place. These connecting posts are relatively short, and the electroplated parts are quite slippery, so they don't always mesh perfectly. Therefore, a slight adjustment is needed immediately after assembly, followed by gluing. Since this section is stationary, it's securely attached to the shield, with a clear locking mechanism that ensures a tight fit after assembly. It won't easily fall off even with frequent handling. Another crucial point during shield assembly, which wasn't explicitly mentioned in the instructions, is that installing the tail requires replacing the plastic parts inside the shield. After repeated disassembly and reassembly, I finally figured out how to install the shield's tail. First, disassemble the shield's tail and compare the differences in the plastic connectors inside the 2 shields. If you need to install the tail, you need to use the part on the left. This part doesn't have a hole in the middle, while the other part does. Also, the 2 parts are different lengths. The part that connects to the tail is shorter, and the other is longer. I believe everyone knows how to install the tail, so choosing the correct internal connector at the beginning of assembly is essential. Choosing the wrong one will make disassembly very difficult. The blue tail part has two different colors on each side. One side is blue and the other is silver. Choose the color you prefer for installation. Of course, a full gold part is also available in the kit, matching the color scheme of Bandai models. Additionally, regarding the wire for the tail section, if you find it difficult to install, you can replace it with a softer wire. The wire provided by the manufacturer is quite stiff. When installing the tail section, the head and tail are quite tight, making it difficult to install. You need to slowly and carefully wedge it into place, including when inserting the wire into the parts, which is also relatively tight. Therefore, if you are not used to using stiffer wire, it is best to find a softer, longer wire to use, since the internal wire is not visible from the outside. Another issue is that the blue cross wings on the shield are unbalanced. I don't know why both of my shields are unbalanced. They might have been damaged during transport. Upon closer inspection of the shield surface, the electroplated paint has a slight orange peel effect. There is some paint buildup, and sink marks appear in some areas. In summary, the shield's assembly is quite good. It doesn't require a lot of force to install properly, which is definitely better than Chonglong's shield. Although some parts of the instruction manual don't explicitly state the installation steps, simple disassembly and reassembly allow for a complete installation. Of the three products, I currently prefer Shen Shou's version. The paint imperfections are fewer, and the exposed sprue marks are not severe. The overall integrity and tightness of the product are satisfactory. All three shields are replicas of the MG version of Phoenix, and Shen Shou seems to have put effort into their product, which is much better than the other two companies' perfunctory attitude. Although not perfect, it's worth buying. I suggest everyone keep an eye out for a possible repaired version. Okay, that's all for this video. Please subscribe to my channel, like and share, and see you in the next video.